I just got to spend the last couple days alternating between cursing and holding my breath or completely terrified in one of the most zen games coming out soon for console and PC, Expedition's a MudRunner game. Yet, just like Forza, when you're in the flow, MudRunner feels like one of the most zen series of games that I've ever played. I've been spending hours with it from Saber Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment to test it for preview prior to its release in March. And I don't know if you've ever played a game like this, but they're a unique blend of balance, patience, and let's go for it moments that you ever have in a driving game. And I say driving because it's not racing. The MudRunner or SnowRunner games are just that kind of title. Deep Wild's 4x4 driving in amazing looking locations that require slow going, incredible spatial awareness, and somehow it makes driving at 2 miles an hour as stressful as ripping down a track at 200 miles an hour in a Forza game. I've got new reviews and previews and podcasts coming, so subscribe to the channel, hit the notify all bell. And I'd like to know if you played those original games, because this one is definitely a bit different. In fact, a good comparison is almost like the simulator titles that we've seen explode in recent years. For example, Power Washer or Car Mechanic, where slowly and meticulously uncovering efficiencies and shortcuts reminds you with the smallest of improvements but the largest of reward hits. Expedition started me out in a short tutorial plodding around this mountainous base, learning how to switch gears, change tire pressure to get traction at the expense of gasoline usage, as well as using a drone and other equipment to explore the area and decide on the way I wanted to go. The first truck is a big rig, a big cabbed slow plotter that exhibits all the feeling of true 4x4 and rock crawling style. Seconds later, I was slowly creeping across this amazing ridge, fighting to make sure that I didn't slide off the edge, and the next moment descending down a hill at 1 inch a second so that I don't become the equivalent of a rock avalanche video on YouTube. It's what makes the juice of these games. In so many ways, the runner games are the antithesis of current racing game trends, trading speed for clearance and quick corner ability with a low center of gravity, because a 4-inch rock can turn you into a 4,000-pound Looney Tunes cartoon without any warning. Where racing games feel like this consistent affair with the delineation line between, say, white lines and spinouts, MudRunner is a love affair with almost surgeon-like patience, staring at a small pile of rocks and thinking about the way your truck leans or slides, or if its articulation's been undermined by you throwing some sweet-ass looking racks on the roof. As I went through it, you start to learn to switch quickly between gears, change the air pressure in the tires without slowing down too much, or use the sonar to see if the shortcut makes sense to risk. This is the difference between the way you set up the vehicles. While handling is excellent and this speed almost without any kind of subjectiveness, your setups can feel dramatically different in how they react to the terrain. If you set up a truck wrong and try to skid along the side of a mountain ridge, it can feel like you built the truck out of a teeter-totter and some Oreos, leaning and reacting well beyond your real ability to get it back in line. And that's the absolute mastery of these games, and where Expedition feels like something old being new again. But where Expedition differs from the original games is a bit in the mission structure and the cycle of gameplay. The gameplay loop in these games in the past has been the long haul many times, slowly moving through dangerous territories to get to a spot on some far-off place of the map. Sometimes side things do come up, but many times it's a bit more about the single destination than a dynamic changing journey when it comes to anything other than what would you need to get past this particular obstacle. The game here has an overarching theme and story, working on this research mission in hazardous areas, delivering items around the levels to keep the projects going, using tools, like I said, like the sonar system to check water depths before you ford them, and using a drone to look out at the area before dropping it into low gear and squeezing a fat-ass Chelsea tractor into a crevice to save a little bit of gas versus going around. As you progress, you can even build out the home base in some locations, adding buildings and even specialists that man it to help you with different aspects like research and exploration. I think where Expeditions is going to have success and possibly a little bit of difficulty is with the gamers embracing the changes that were made. Obviously, this isn't Forza main series or Forza Horizon level switches, not even close, but it does feel different. The open form gameplay from the original is still somewhat here, but there are some gamified moments, for example the base, the various equipment, and they hedge closer to a tight reward cycle than the original did, despite still taking long drives, finding shortcuts, and trying to minimize damage. And not only do you get that money, but you start to unlock different things that you can upgrade in the cars, hardware options like bumpers, tires, roof modules, painting, and more. So basically you can make the truck look amazing right before you roll it down a hill into a canyon. Different missions can require particular types of vehicles with their own setups to master, depending on the choice of the path you want to take. Do you want to ford the river and try to climb out using the rocks on the other side, or go sideways across a hill face and hope you don't flip over? Each step of each drive has almost limitless choices because the developers made sure that even the locations with old trail roads are still all sorts of dangerous. Graphically, what can I say? It pretty much looks like a MudRunner's game. It still has a bit of time to go before the game is released, but it's all readable, making sure that locations, hazards, and materials make sense to the driver. The vehicles take damage whenever you smash into something or misread a drop and plunge the nose into the earth, versus catching the weight on the front tires during a rock drop and gently moving forward and away from it. But most notable are the slow gradient changes from pebbled rock on a side road to mud and then to a bog, and it's really well handled here already. Now, during previews, it's always hard to figure out exactly what feature is locked and what's still getting some slight massaging to align with the original ideas for the game. So far, it seems pretty locked in, though a couple times I took damage where its impact seemed incredibly light, even compared to the prior games. We'll just have to see exactly how that plays out. But no matter what, the vistas are awesome, and if you think of them as a terrain puzzle piece, the 3D chess kind of gameplay absolutely reminds you of the prior games. And MudRunner does really make you feel like you need to use every single element that you get. For example, various tools like that sonar I talked about earlier, as well as drones and binoculars to plan your travels across the land. You're going to find yourself using them all the time. The drone in particular is a bit of a unique feature. First, it's maybe the world's slowest drone. I've seen old Sears RC cars ordered from a magazine move faster, but you can't argue how damned invaluable it is when you have to Attenborough the landscape looking for just the perfect trail and set up each waypoint so that you can make sure you can get from one spot to the other. My time with Expeditions was a mixed one, not in quality at all, but in changes versus familiarity and what the expectations are versus the reality of what they're planning to deliver. With a lot of equipment and a somewhat more mission-driven gameplay loop, it doesn't feel fully changed, but it does feel a good deal modified from the original games, and some of this is certainly prepping for newcomers. The slicker HUD and more responsive way of using equipment, though, is also gonna probably be something that people who played a lot of these games will also appreciate. And I did, because going into this, they made it clear it's a different attempt in the same genre, and it feels exactly like that. I'll have to get my hands on the full game to identify if the changes appeal to me after dozens of hours of gameplay versus just my time with the preview code. And so far, it's pretty much exactly as they say it is, a different style of game in the MudRunner titles, but one that they hope still feels close enough to all the others that you'd be able to jump in and also be prepping for new people who've never played the prior games. And that is pretty much exactly how it feels. So what do you guys think? Are you actually interested in this new format, or do you want to go back to the old styles? And we'll see if they actually do that. Are you a fan of those originals? This is the first game that many of you guys will get, and I would like to know more about any kind of details that you want me to cover in the review. As always, subscribe to the channel. Peace out, gang. Have a great week.